On April 24th, 1994, police respond to a call at a bar in Bangor, Maine. Outside, they find Virginia Pictou-Noyes, who claims her husband and brother-in-law had just beat her outside the bar. With her husband under arrest and her brother-in-law charged in the assault, Virginia is taken to an area hospital for her injuries. There, around 1 a.m., she quietly slips out of the hospital. The last she is seen is heading north through the parking lot. Her husband tells everyone that Virginia has run away from home, but her family believes differently. This is her story.
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Amy.
And you're listening to She Goes by Jane. At the end of this episode and every episode, we will be joined by a special guest who will read an original poem by Amy Baker about the women we're featuring. This week, we are joined by Althea Sam.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Amy.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. I think I might have the sniffles again.
Yeah.
Why are we always sick? You were just sick.
Well, yes.
And now I think I'm sick.
I mean, we do sit like 2 feet from one another.
Yeah.
I am not responsible for your illness, though, because you are actually like doing some film work on a project that I'm sure we can't talk about, but like you were hanging out with people who were sick who were not me.
Yes, one person was sick who was not you.
Yes.
And I don't want to blame him, but maybe that's why I'm sick.
I mean, the evidence seems to suggest.
Yes, it wasn't you this time.
No.
But now I might get you sick.
I am just recovering, so
right. So your immune system
together.
Is like nice and low. You're in a great spot for you to get reinfected.
Oh God, if we both sound scratchy though in this episode, I'm going to apologize. Yeah.
Yep.
So Vanessa, for this episode, I'm just going to dive right in to our missing person's story. Yeah, I think...
Wait, we're just going right in?
Yeah, I mean, I think about this woman so often, and I gave one of my first poetry readings in the area where she disappeared, and just was thinking about her the entire time, and just, like, this story breaks my heart in so many ways. So.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Okay. On April 24th, 1993, police answered a call around 10 p.m. to a bar on State Street in Bangor, Maine. And probably, like, this is a fairly typical on a Saturday night. Like, there was a call for an altercation. But when they arrived, they found a young woman waiting for them. Her name was Virginia Pictou-Noyes, and the 26-year-old woman was clearly drunk, but more alarmingly, she was visibly shaking and sobbing. Soon they were able to see that her face was already swelling and a bruise coming in over her right eye, and her lips were cut. So she has been injured. When they asked her what happened, she said that her husband, L, and his brother, R, had both punched her in the head and face. She said they'd been drunk when they'd done it, and to police this did seem likely, but as they were talking to her, her husband, L, approached. And with him standing by, she changed her story. She said that it was only her brother-in-law, R, that had hit her.
Okay. That's probably a typical reaction, right?
Yeah. So this happens a lot. And in some police training really talks about, like, being able to separate, particularly when there's a domestic violence situation, the person reporting from the potential abuser, right? So that because...
Well, who would be comfortable saying it was him while he's standing next to you?
Right there, right?
Ugh.
Now, my guess is the police quickly assessed this situation and understood what was happening, so they did good there. During their interactions, they could tell that Virginia was afraid of her husband. They decided to arrest her husband, L, and they placed him in the back of their patrol car. Once inside the vehicle, he actually started screaming at Virginia and kicking at the windows of the cruiser. Likely to any of the onlookers there, they could tell how angry he was. For his brother R, meanwhile, people said that it was clear that he was staggeringly drunk. And while he wasn't arrested there at the bar, he was actually charged with assaulting Virginia. Virginia, meanwhile, was taken to the Eastern Maine Medical Center in Bangor to have her injuries treated. Much later, Virginia's family was able to get a hold of the police report from that night. In a testimony before a commission on missing and murdered Indigenous women, Virginia's brother Robert stated on that night there'd been a dispute in the bar and that Virginia had decided to leave. On the way out, her husband Al came up behind her and jump kicked her from behind. Virginia fell out through the door and onto the pavement outside. Instead, that he jumped on top of her and held her arms down with his knees while he started to beat her around the face and head. His brother R knelt next to Elle and began to hit her as well.
It's really violent.
Yeah. And just like, I really want everyone to remember this for later because this is what the police put in the report using what Virginia said about that night. And I want us all to remember that this sequence of event because within a matter of hours, Virginia would disappear. Virginia was born to Robert and Susie Pictou on April 2nd, 1967. She was part of a blended family and one of the youngest of Robert and Susie's children. Back then, the whole family lived in Fort Fairfield, which is in Aroostook County, which is the northernmost county in all of the United States. Aroostook County is actually bigger than 3 of the smallest states in the U.S. and has a population of just 67,000. So we're talking incredibly rural. And a lot of people up there are making their living, harvesting potatoes and blueberries, and this includes Virginia's family. More importantly, though, it's home to the Mi'kmaq Nation, which Virginia and her family are part of. Now, one thing that is incredibly important to understand is that with the colonization of North America, the decision to create a borderline between the United States and Canada meant that a border created by settlers was placed right through the ancestral lands of the Mi'kmaq. So later, when I start talking about advocacy, you'll understand why a lot of the advocacy for Virginia and missing Native and Indigenous women is happening in Canada, right? Because these ancestral lands, they extend up through places like Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. Mm-hmm. Now, during her childhood, Virginia is an A student, and her family describes her as sort of this bright spot and beautiful personality. One of her brothers, Francis, said in an interview, "She was a lot of fun. She kept me on my toes." But here's the thing. Virginia meets a boy, and by age 14, she has her first child, which means it's likely she was pregnant at about the age of 13. Mm-hmm. And Vanessa, you and I have talked about teen pregnancies on this show before, and I've said that I was terrified of taking care of my daughter when I had her at 30, so I can't imagine how scared she was at age 13, 14.
Right. Did she have a supportive family?
Yeah, so her family is you can tell the way they talk about each other, how much and how deeply connected they are.
So they did help her through that time. It's so important for kids like this to have support.
Yeah, I mean, I believe she continued to live with her family. Yeah, but that doesn't mean even with a strong family support, it's
it's still terrifying. But it's worse when we've talked about some cases where parents pretty much abandon their daughters at this point. So how can you take an already horrible situation that even with all the support in the world is going to be so hard on this girl?
Yeah.
And then make it that much harder. That's not love.
Right. And yeah, we've talked about that before. We tell teen girls in particular, because we don't apparently talk to teen boys about this. Right. But we're always just talking about all the bad things that will happen to them if they're teen moms. But literally we create a society in which we in a society level punish girls so hard. We don't provide those supports. Right. We don't provide those mechanisms, right?
And we don't talk to the boys.
Yeah. But so
and that's a collective we, because I talk to my kids.
And
I'm sure you talk to your...
I do. Yeah. Now, okay, so she is raising her son, Randy, who, by the way, was born in the same year that I was. So, I think a little bit about some of the experiences that he had in a little bit. And by 17, though, Virginia has a second son. So it's around then that she drops out of school. And then in 1987, Virginia and her family lose their matriarch, Susanna, after a brief illness. Susanna was just 55 years old. And after the funeral service, she was buried in Nova Scotia. At this point, Virginia was just 19 years old, and she's raising her 2 kids.
This poor Virginia has been...
Yeah.
No wonder you said this story is incredibly sad. Mm-hmm. It's starting out... Yeah.
Yeah. So, raising two kids, trying to figure out how to be a mom, and losing your own mom?
It's a lot. It's too much.
So it's around this time, though, that Virginia meets L and R. And anyone, I think, in the small town of Fort Fairfield could tell you, like, these boys were trouble. So Elle is the same age as Virginia, and R is just 2 years older. So they all knew each other, but both Elle and R had already spent time in jail for several years for the vandalism of 127 gravestones at the Riverside Cemetery in Fort Fairfield.
Oh, that's awful. Especially for people like us. So one thing about Amy and I is we love to go for walks in cemeteries and just admire like the beauty of the names and some of the stones. And so this is a terrible crime.
Yeah, I mean, so my great-grandmother's headstone has actually been vandalized. It was part of a vandalizing incident here. And the headstones were not put back in the same places. Like, they were repaired, but they just put them in, like, a row and glued them back together. So they don't even mark her grave anymore.
Right. I haven't been able to find certain family members because their headstones are gone completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, so this is, like... So if you take in particular, like, small towns where, like, everyone knows each other, like, they're still actively burying people in these cemeteries, like, this was just, like, a really, like, shocking crime for this community, right? So, like, so many people in that area, just, like, that's where their loved ones were buried.
Yeah.
So Virginia, though, she begins a relationship with Elle when he gets out of jail, right? And in August of 1987, just a few short months after Virginia lost her mother, she's involved in a police chase with Elle. That summer evening, Fort Fairfield police got a call about cars that were racing on Forest Avenue Road, which is a long country road surrounded by potato fields. It also happens to be the road where Virginia's home is that she, like, grew up in. Officer Gertrude Alice Gray was the one to respond, and she spotted a 1971 gold Oldsmobile Cutlass heading west on the road, and she executed a stop. It was Virginia's car. In fact, it was her prized possession, and she spent a lot of time working on that car. But Elle was actually the one driving that night, and Virginia was in the passenger seat, and in the back are 2 other people. When Officer Gray started talking to Elle, he was slurring his responses, and he smelled of alcohol. And that's when she notified him that he was under arrest for operating a motor vehicle under the influence and informed him that he would be taking a sobriety test once they got back to the police station. Now, for some reason, likely because she'd been drinking too, Virginia told Gray, the officer, not to arrest Elle. And this was not something Officer Gray was about to do. But sliding over to the driver's seat, Virginia yelled for Elle to get in the car. Instead, Elle just, like, ran for the woods.
So he didn't get arrested?
So she's, like, trying to arrest him.
She's trying to arrest him and he's running.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Virginia, though, she's in the driver's seat of the car and she throws the car into drive. She does a U-turn, like, it sprays gravel everywhere, like, actually breaks the window to the police cruiser. Right. And then she tears off. This chase is pretty brief. It lasts just 2.5 miles and at speeds of around 57 miles per hour. But Virginia actually quickly outpaced Officer Gray. I'm assuming because Officer Gray had to, like, get in her car.
Right.
Anyway, not long after, officers found the Oldsmobile at Virginia's trailer, which was, again, on Forest Avenue Road. Unable to approach initially because of what they called her attack dog, it would take a while before she was arrested, but they cuffed her in her own driveway. She was charged with permitting unauthorized operation of her motor vehicle by a person under the influence of intoxicating liquor, driving to endanger, and failure to stop for a police officer. Elle, meanwhile, he had made it into the woods. He was pursued by State Trooper James Wiley and his dog Chico. Like, literally anytime I can insert a dog.
And that cute name?
Chico, right. Likely hoping to lose the dog, though, Elle took off his clothes. Like, he's running, he's throwing off his clothes.
Why?
And he's, like, throwing them in the woods. He's, like, hoping to, like, distract the dog, essentially.
Okay.
His plan does not work. Trooper Wiley arrests the completely naked Elle after he was taken down by Chico.
I don't mean to laugh, but
I mean, it's
a little bit
only
funny
moment, right? Like, I'm
it's
just
a
trying
little
to
bit
visualize
funny.
this.
It's such a horrible story, but then this naked guy getting taken down by Chico the dog.
Yeah. And Chico had, like, bit him a little.
Oh.
Yeah.
And he had no clothes, so it probably hurt.
Yeah. Now, despite this rocky start to their relationship, Elle and Virginia, they continue to date. And by April of 1988, the couple welcomed their first child together, a daughter named Ashley. And 13 months later, in May of 1989, they had a boy named Jesse. Later that year, on August 12th, 1989, Virginia and Elle officially married, and just a few months later, in 1990, the couple had another daughter. So at 22, Virginia was raising 5 children.
Yeah, that's a lot of kids.
That is a lot.
At such a young age.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I mean, I just like want to wrap her up.
Yeah,
Right?
just take her out of that situation, bring her and her kids somewhere else and give them a new life, right?
Right. I mean, I think it's because, she's 22, like she had to drop out of school, like she's raising these kids. I mean, to be clear, she very much loves the kids.
But she's not even fully like an adult yet, in the sense of like what an adult is.
Oh, like brain development?
Brain development wise and everything, right?
Yeah. So this is no shame to her for having 5 kids.
Definitely not. It's just
like,
there's a lot on her plate. There's a lot on her plate.
Yeah. Now, some of this information comes from Elle. So I'm going to remind everyone the problem with this is that he gets to shape the narrative, so take everything with a grain of salt. But Elle says that on the Friday night of October 19th, 1990, the two of them actually got into an argument, and then it was heated enough that she kicked him out of the house at around 10 p.m. at night. At 3:40 a.m., a phone call comes into the fire department. There's a trailer on fire out on Forest Avenue Road. By the time the firefighters arrived, the trailer was already fully engulfed in flames, and some of the roof and walls had already collapsed. It had actually been Virginia's 8-year-old son, Randy. So again, Randy and I are the same age, so I'm just trying to picture myself in this situation. So he first spotted the flames, right? And Randy had woken up. He'd smelled smoke, so he made his way to his mother's bedroom, which was on the opposite side of the trailer. Now, as someone who grew up in a single wide trailer, it's like quite common to have this split bedroom design with an adult's bedroom on one end and like the kids on the other for extra privacy. And the problem with a lot of single wide trailers is that many of the homes only have like one exit.
Right.
Yeah, this is like something that my parents were like, we are fixing. Like we had like 4 different exits. Yeah.
Your dad thought about it.
Yeah. He was like, no.
Right.
Yeah. Now, but back to that night. So Randy is making his way towards his mother's bedroom, and he sees the flames and smoke in the kitchen area. Virginia, awoken from sleep by her son, ripped the plastic sheeting that covered the windows in the hall in her bedroom and broke them open. She was able to lower 3 of her children, including Randy, out of these windows. She wasn't able to make it back through the trailer to the other 2 children, though, because of the heavy smoke. Jumping from the bedroom window herself, she ran to the front of the trailer, where she broke open another window into their rooms, and she was trying to reach the children. But it was too late. Despite her valiant efforts, 2.5-year-old Ashley and 17-month-old Jessie passed away.
I don't want to keep talking about this story.
Mm-hmm.
This is a terrible story.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the time we talk about a woman's life before she disappears, and she had like a pretty good life in the short amount of time she had. Virginia did not.
No. Yeah, there's a lot of...
This is a really heavy story.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments of hardship in her life, and yeah.
I just can't imagine.
2 of her babies.
Her 2 babies.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a moment.
So there are a lot of rumors about the origins of this fire, but an inspector from the State Oil Burner and Solid Fuels Board stated that the cause was a leak in the home's fuel pump for the furnace. So again, I can't testify to the rumors. I can just talk about
what happened.
Yeah, what the inspector said it was.
Okay.
Now, of course, losing her children in the fire was something that changed Virginia forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Virginia and Elle and their surviving children moved away from the Forest Avenue Road, which is where she had, spent her entire life. Now, again, this is from Elle, but Elle claimed that Virginia was filled with anger and grief and was often beating on him and blaming him for not being there that night. And again, Virginia isn't here to offer her own words about this time.
You know what, though? Let's give her a break.
Yeah.
Say this is true. I don't know if I really care.
Right.
She's going through something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
it's not going to change how I feel.
No.
About what she's going through.
No. He also said that she would use sweetgrass in her bath, and he claimed it was to soothe her sorrows, and that it's something that he as a white man didn't understand or didn't care for.
He should have kept his mouth shut about that.
Yeah, whatever you need, right?
Right.
Yeah. Now, the couple did actually have 2 more children after that time. So there was a daughter born in 1991 and another daughter born in 1992. So, and to be clear, everyone said that Virginia was deeply devoted to her children. Even Elle said that they rarely went anywhere without the kids.
Well, and to be clear, just because someone has a lot of kids or a lot of kids young does not mean they don't love them.
Exactly. Right? Like there's...
Let's put that aside.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in April 1993, though, they did leave without the kids, leaving the kids in the care of a babysitter, Virginia. Elle and Elle's brother R traveled the 2.5 hours to Bangor, Maine.
Oh, is this where we started?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, apparently the trip was to visit the brother's father. And that's how on that night, April 24th, the 3 of them find themselves outside a State Street bar with Elle under arrest, R facing charges, and Virginia about to be hospitalized. According to Elle, that night at the bar, R slapped Virginia on the butt, enraging Elle. Elle would later claim that his brother R and Virginia had a relationship together before Elle and Virginia started dating. He claims that after Virginia disappeared, R told their mother that Virginia was the only woman he'd ever loved. Members of Elle and R's family have even insinuated that the daughter who was lost in the fire could have actually have been R's. But, like, if we just think about this for a second, if we think this story is true, that Elle was pissed that his brother slapped his wife's butt, why does he decide to vent his anger on his wife?
Right.
Like, attacking her so viciously, and why would his brother join him? Like, this love of his life in beating her outside the bar? Which, like, honestly, like, the poem at the end, we don't always talk about the poem in the context of the conversation, but, like, this, like, it like, it has, like, some words, like, the brothers beat love, right? Like, which is to say it's, like, not love.
It's not love.
So when you get to that part of it, like, that is not what is happening. Right?
Violence is violence.
Yeah. And to further this, the family, Elle and R's family, was in the papers maintaining that this beating didn't even happen at all.
Okay.
Elle claimed that he would never hit or hurt his wife, and that, in fact, the two rarely argued. Although I would like to point out, he says that's why he left the house on the night of the fire.
Right.
Meanwhile...
Well, and he said that she was violent after her babies died.
Yeah.
Like,
there's some...
inconsistencies like usual with these cases, right?
Right. So meanwhile, Elle and R's sister claimed that though her brothers had a drinking problem, they would never have assaulted Virginia.
So what does she think happened?
Yeah, well, so she claimed in the papers that on the night, basically the door to the bar swung open and hit Virginia in the face.
Just that one hit did all of that damage to her face?
Yes. I mean, it's just like...
Okay.
Yeah. Now, that night, Virginia was taken to the hospital to treat her injuries, right? Now, just imagine for a second, you've got this woman who dearly loves her children, who has left them in the care of a babysitter. She is over 2 hours away from them, and one of the 2 men she's accused of assaulting her has not been arrested, right? So the brother R.
Yeah.
And the other, well, if you know anything about how quickly those accused of domestic abuse are released, well, you know, she was likely worried that her husband was going to be released rather quickly.
Right.
Which is why it shouldn't be surprising that around 1 a.m., when the hospital staff was occupied with a shooting victim who had just come into the ER, Virginia actually quietly slips out of the hospital.
So was she heading back to her kids?
Yeah, one of the last known sightings of her seems to be of her heading north through the parking lot of the hospital. Many believe that she may have been able or trying to, like, hitchhike home.
Okay.
There's some indication that she may have made a phone call from a phone booth in Mars Hill, and if this is true, it means she actually is pretty close to Fort Fairfield, right? But with all of that, Virginia disappears.
Oof, she might have been better staying put, right?
Yeah, I mean, God, she was just trying to make it back to her babies.
I know.
Right. Now, later, when the police are not able to find her as a witness for the charges against her husband and her brother-in-law, those charges are dropped. The first news article I can find about Virginia's disappearance is over 1 year after she disappeared. And while it's clear that law enforcement has been looking for Virginia, her story wasn't making the headlines of the local papers.
Do we have ideas on that?
Right. Well,
right?
Yeah, we have, had conversations in the past about what happens when essentially you are not a white woman and
Right.
you're missing, right?
You're not white, you're not rich, you're not...
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
really compounded when we look at Native and Indigenous women.
Right. That's what I was
Yeah.
getting at with that, because it's definitely a thing that repeats itself over and over again.
Yes. And like this is in like the United States, in Canada, this is we are past crisis levels when it comes to missing Native and Indigenous women.
Right.
So the first time we really see coverage of her, this is 1994, and a lot has changed in the lives of like everyone who's connected to Virginia. First, her kids had been in custody of Elle, who was raising them with the help of his mother and his aunt. But at this point, Elle and R are both in jail. R is serving time for assaulting his wife and violating the conditions of his bond. Al is in for a 1-year sentence of operating a motor vehicle under the influence of intoxicating liquor, driving after license suspension, driving to endanger, failure to stop for an officer in violation of bond conditions. Now, because of Al's arrest, the children are split up. The 2 oldest boys are sent to live with their biological father. The younger children were sent into foster care. And it's during this time that he's in jail that we get one of the bigger pieces of news coverage about Virginia. During a jailhouse interview, the reporter informs Elle that the lead detective on this case, James Medore, considers Elle and R prime suspects in Virginia's disappearance. She writes in her piece that upon hearing this, Elle becomes animated and threatens to rip Medore's head off. During this time, he paints his own progression of events. He says that after his arrest that night at the bar, he posted bail and went back to the bar on State Street to look for Virginia and his brother. Like, I'm not sure why that would make sense, but he says that he was unaware that Virginia was taken to the hospital or that his brother made a decision to hitchhike home. He claims that he waited in his car for them until 4:30 a.m. on Sunday and then drove towards home, stopping at every rest area and truck stop along the way to look for both of them. He then says he got home sometime between 6:30 and 6:45 in the morning, which, by the way, I don't know exactly where he lived in Fort Fairfield or how fast he was going, but it's generally considered like a 2.5-hour drive from State Street to Fort Fairfield, and he claims he did it in 2 hours, and that's with including stopping at, as he says, every rest area and truck stop along the way.
So he really wasn't looking for either of them?
This seems so far-fetched to me, but yeah, I mean, I don't often offer my thoughts on this, but like that, I added that in because that just doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when he arrives, he claims that the babysitter told him that Virginia had called about 2 hours earlier, so around 4:30 a.m., and that's the same time he says he left Bangor, and anyway, the phone call is that she was looking for a ride home. He then says he waited around the house all of Sunday, and then when Virginia didn't return, finally reported her missing on Monday. Now, to Virginia's family, none of this has ever rung true. It's clear that the family had worried about Virginia long before she disappeared, and her sister Agnes said that Virginia had often talked to her and other family members during domestic situations. Her father, Robert, says that after Virginia disappeared, he and Elle ended up working side by side in the potato fields. He said that Elle came up to him and said, "Bob, you know that I loved your daughter and you know I wouldn't hurt her." And Robert said he looked at Elle and said, "But you did, didn't you?" And with that, Elle just walked away.
Also, they don't know where she is and he's using the past tense on loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's because in this 1994 interview, Elle claims that Virginia left on her own accord. And he also claims that his mother had found a note from Virginia in one of Virginia's sweaters. Supposedly, she had written that she was planning on leaving in April or August 1983 and that she would be back when all of her children turned 18.
Okay.
Elle also made the claim that he felt her family had a part in whisking her away, basically, and hiding her.
Really?
Yeah. Now, Al's sister echoes this in the article. Remember, she's the one who said the door hit her. She says that she felt Virginia was tired and that she'd been tied down with kids since she was 14 years old.
No doubt on that, but still, it doesn't mean this is what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this story isn't just one he told in 1994. He continues to claim that Virginia was still alive. Shortly before his and Virginia's youngest daughter was set to turn 18, He told her the story about the note that Virginia would return when all of her children were 18 years old and older, right? Now, Virginia's youngest daughter never got to know her mother. She was just a few months old when her mother disappeared, and she had to learn about her mother through everyone else's stories. Still, on her 18th birthday, she waited for her mother to come home. She never did.
He told this story to his kids.
Yeah.
Kind of awful.
Right. Like, so then the story that you're telling your children is that your mother left and didn't want to take care of you.
And she'll be back, so just keep waiting and waiting and waiting for no reason.
Right. So, like, when we talk about these stories, though, we can also talk about how, like, Elle's stories don't match up with what everyone else says they know of her, that she was a dedicated mother who deeply cared for her children. Barbara Bird, whose husband owned a potato farm that Virginia had done work at, said she was completely worn out from childbearing, but if she were alive today, she would be with her children. She loved them, and she would never have left them, no matter what her circumstance. She didn't want anyone else to take care of them. And if you remember, even Elle himself said that Virginia rarely left her children home without her, that she was always bringing all of them with her.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear that the family believed that Virginia would not have left and that the brothers did harm to her. When the newspapers asked if Agnes, Virginia's sister, had evidence to support this, she says yes, but not anything that would be admissible in a court of law. She says, on the night that Virginia disappeared, Agnes was in Nova Scotia at the Mi'kmaq Reserve. So Agnes said that Virginia called her that night and left a message. Later, while Agnes slept, she had a dream of two people beating a young woman. And she says that when she spoke to her brother, who was in New Hampshire, he'd had the same dream. Later, she learned about Virginia.
That's so weird.
Yeah, so, like, in the years since, like, their father has gone to various tribal spiritual leaders hoping to learn what happened to his daughter. And Agnes says the family has actually fielded calls from Native and Indigenous people from varying tribes, and many report seeing similar visions of Virginia. It's through these that Agnes says that she knows that Virginia is in the spirit world and that Virginia is trying to communicate that her body is in the woods near a body of water. So this is why she says, like, she has evidence, but it's not, like, court admissible.
Right. It's just the kind that, like, give anyone hearing it complete and total chills.
Mm-hmm. So in 2012, Advocates for Virginia created a Facebook group as a place where people could share stories and work on solving her case. It was a private group that was briefly public. It was there just before her family testified in front of a commission on missing and murdered Indigenous women in 2017 that one of R's sons posted something shocking. In his post, he claimed that he knew his father and Elle had both taken part in killing Virginia. He said that a car that had been connected to this murder had been burned in a barn and located in Easton, Maine. Now, CBC News, they pressed him for more information, but he declined, saying that it was a long time ago and he wasn't involved in it. But copies of these statements were given to investigators. Now, through their incredible loss, her family has continued to advocate for Virginia and other missing and murdered Indigenous women. Much of this advocacy work takes place in Canada because as far as Canada is from achieving true justice for missing Indigenous women and from making, like, reparations for the harm done to all Indigenous people, that country itself is actually much further ahead in this than the United States. Though advocates have been continuing to do work in the United States, there continues to be barriers to even establishing this as an issue in the U.S. And really, Virginia is not alone. Her case is part of an ongoing crisis that continues to devastate Indigenous communities. In Maine, where the Wabanaki nations, which are the Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, Maliseet, and Mi'kmaq, they've long been fighting for visibility and justice. Like, Indigenous women are continuing to go missing with little resolution. Across the U.S. and Canada, like, these grassroots activists are taking the lead where law enforcement has failed, and they're pushing for policy changes, data transparency, and real investigative efforts. And cases like Virginia's deserve renewed attention, not just for her family's sake, but for the safety of all Indigenous women. Now, every year, the family returned to Maine from all of the places that they had scattered to, searching for their missing daughter, sister, and mother. But with each passing year, more changes make that search more difficult. Everyone held out hope that either of the brothers would confess what happened that night, but R died in 2009. Al had been in and out of jail for the rest of his life, sometimes on domestic violence charges, and he also passed away keeping whatever truths he needed to say to himself. And now, several of Virginia's siblings have passed away. And I think the world deserves to hear about Virginia. And I think for our listeners, one of the ways that you can promote activism is to follow her story. You can subscribe to our podcast. You can share her story from our podcast or any of the other ways that you see her story come up. Share it so that people hear her name and know what happened to her.
We are now going to listen to Amy's poem, Conductance, about Virginia Pictou-Noyes, 26, missing since April 24th, 1993, from Bangor, Maine, read by Althea Sam. Althea is a member of the Dine Nation, which is considered one of the largest sovereign tribes in the United States. She was born on the Dine Reservation in Tuba City, Arizona. Althea served in the United States Navy and is proud of her service. She began her career as an actress in Taylor Sheridan's film, Wind River.
The brothers beat love into her skin under the pulse electric hum of the tavern bar sign. And her body conducts the static swell of night air into the violet bloom of oiled tarmac. They beat love as blood sparks across the dark pavement like small electrodes. And her body conducts the cries of children caught in a night fire into the stinging bulb of loosened teeth. They beat love while each man tells her she is like a hook burst deep into their lips. And her body conducts the cold yellow moon, night-nicked into a grid of blood at her wrists. The brothers beat love into her skin while the stars die out.
For more information about our show or to check out other shows on the network, please visit evergreenpodcast.com. Bye, Vanessa.
Bye, Amy.